Tap, tap. Is this thing on? I think we're on. I think we're back, Michael.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, but the Monster Guys are back.
And fighting off allergies and change of season nastiness.
Yeah, so I'm DC McGannon, and I'm here with C. Michael McGannon. As always, we are... I don't even remember what I used to say. Maybe I should start that over. I'm DC McGannon, and I'm here with my partner and I'm DC McGannon, and I'm here with my partner and co-conspirator in all things creative, C. Michael McGannon. We are the Monster Guys. You're listening to the Monster Guys podcast. We've been away for a couple of days, Michael.
A couple of days.
Yeah, just a couple of days.
Several months, hasn't it been?
And just to kind of let people know why we were gone for a few days, maybe a couple weeks, we have been campaigning around the world during this election cycle because we understand that people need fresh voices, they need better candidates, and people just need a little bit of clarity and hope in their lives. So we traveled the world to give that to those people. Even though the election cycle is only here in the U.S., we went ahead and traveled the world to talk to fans worldwide about what we're campaigning for. And that is, what are we campaigning for? Oh wait, did we just campaign for 6 or 7 months for no real title?
I was going to say, if you're suggesting McGannon, it's first I've heard of it, but...
That sounds pretty good. I think we need to go with that. Are we on the ballot? Are we... I don't know. By the time people listen to this, the voting is probably over, but
probably
here in the U.S., but are we actually on the ballot, or did we just do this world tour for nothing?
Well, I think this was more for our books and projects than it was for an election.
Oh, I've been telling people the wrong thing the whole time. Dang.
Well, I don't think the class that we spoke to the other day is going to go out and
shout out to Galileo's school in Orlando. We just had the privilege of speaking to the middle schoolers of that school about creative writing. That was a lot of fun. That's one of the things that we did while we were away. We did some shows, some conventions, we wrote some books, conquered some lands, researched some more monsters, chased some monsters. I don't know. We did a lot of stuff. To be fair, though, to all of our listeners, we did not intend to be away for so long. It was intended to be a few weeks of a break and then jump back into what we would call season 2 of the Monster Guys podcast. And then a lot of things happen. Some of those very personal that we can't really get into on air. And some of that we just literally got overwhelmed with writing and publishing and all the things that go along with that. And then we ended up in the summer months with a couple of shows. We ended up DJing a few times and had some book signings. And then we finally got into an interview with Ballistic Interactive, which we're going to share in this podcast, which is totally freaking awesome.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to everybody hearing about that.
Yeah, this is legit stuff that we're talking about right here. Am I allowed to use the word legit?
I think on this crowd podcast that's going to enjoy hearing from Ballistic is probably, they use that.
Very well. So I am speaking to my target audience. This is legit stuff, people. These guys are from Australia. We'll introduce them in just a little bit. Yeah, so the break took a lot longer than we expected, but we are back, and really that whole interview with Ballistic coming back into the Monster Guys podcast, I would dare say it was the interview that almost didn't happen. We got set up, and then we had technical glitches. The thing, literally, systems just shut down time and again. We couldn't get things recorded, and then even the interview you'll hear today we had to edit out some of it because of some other phantom stuff that was happening in the midst of it. And then I got sick. I was flat on my face, sick within hours after that interview, and I'm still recovering. I'm just doped up on all kinds of allergy medicine and all kinds of stuff right now. I don't know what it is.
It was kind of sad because I know that they were looking forward to the interview. We were looking forward to the interview. We've been talking about it for a few weeks at least, and once we got into it, I'm really glad they were as patient with us as they were. I think it was an hour to 2 hours of technical difficulties that we had to sort out beforehand.
Yeah, it was nuts. And even the night before that, though, there was a misunderstanding of time. And of course, they're like
time zone issue.
An entire day's worth of difference between our time zones. So they're sitting up one night waiting for us to call, and we never called. They're just like, forget it. We're not dealing with these guys anymore. And
yeah, they were very gracious, and
we got that sorted out. But
I'm really looking forward to the project, which we'll talk about later. The project that they're working on,
project that is partially inspired by the Monster Guys podcast. So,
which is awesome.
I mean, we're just totally floored. Very honored to be a part of that, and very excited to share that with our listeners. So, Michael, just briefly, what we have coming up this month to get back into this season of podcasts, we've got a couple of news stories. By the way, if you're listening to this podcast and you're subscribing to our feed, you need to understand that we have actually 3 different podcasts in the midst of this feed. We've got platforms being built for our yokai podcast and our fairy tales podcast, but those are not completed as of yet. So if you're looking through our feed, somebody mentioned this to me several weeks ago. They're like, man, I just see so much in there. Well, there's a Monster Guys podcast, which is kind of our main feed. And then there's a yokai podcast. And then there's fairy tales podcast. And that's how they're titled in the feed. So if you're looking through our podcast feed, that's what you see. And we usually do a couple of Monster Guys podcasts per month, and then at least one yokai and at least one fairy tales podcast per month. So we've got a couple of news stories coming this month. We've had a lot of people emailing us and messaging us, whether on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, or like I said, by email saying, hey, where are you guys? Do we get any new stories this month? What's going on? So yes, news stories are coming, and we are going to finish our series on witches that we started before the break. We've got one more Monster Guys podcast to dive into some really thick matter on the subject of witches to finish off that series. And then I think we've got a story about Kitsune, one of your favorites, that you wrote.
I guess got a story about Kitsune, which I don't know why. It's always hard to talk about my favorite monster for some reason. I think it's just the amount of subject matter that's out there for the Japanese fox spirit is so much and so deep that I never feel like I'm doing justice to it.
Yeah, it's vast.
I am looking forward to that story going live for people to dig into. And hopefully it's just an introductory story to get into more Kitsune magic later on. And then we also have a story on the Powery, which is another, I think, underrated monster from Irish folklore.
Yeah, not a lot of people get into that monster.
And really, as simple as it may seem, it's actually a pretty terrifying fairy.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those fairies that doesn't react or respond to all the traditional defenses or attacks or methodologies that most fairies do. So it's vicious. And actually, we're gonna share a little bit in our discussion about a popular, what we believe is a Powery in pop culture that's been around for probably 20, 30, 40 years maybe by now.
I always forget about that, but yeah, it's kind of a shocker.
Cute little monster in cartoons that everybody's running around singing about on Saturday mornings when we used to have Saturday morning cartoons, and they've got movies out about it now, and he's all nice and cute and
blue.
Folks, that's some intense monster stuff right there.
It'll make you question your childhood.
Yeah, totally. So we've got a lot coming this month to jump back in. And like we said, we're going to introduce in just a few minutes a couple guys from Australia that we've had the privilege of meeting over the break, talk about their project. We do appreciate you staying in touch with us and saying, hey, where are you? What's going on? Get your butt back in gear, all that kind of stuff. We did enjoy hearing from everybody and staying in touch with you. So thanks for being patient with us and hanging out with us. We are back.
Would you say that we're back in black?
We are back in black. But anyway, let's introduce our guest for this podcast. We wanted to jump back in with this interview because these guys actually have, in the last couple of weeks, launched their Kickstarter for this project. And so we wanted to interview them, get them on the show, talk to them about their project, especially considering they emailed me one day and they basically said, listen, you guys inspired us. So we were very honored to hear that. And particularly they drew inspiration from a couple of specific episodes. I think one of them was our Wendigo episode.
Which was a very fun episode.
Yeah, very fun. We're actually going to, I think, consult with them and review a lot of their material once the game is developed and make sure that the legends and the mythology and everything are on, which after talking to these guys, they got it down. They know what they're doing, and
it was refreshing. They were almost nervous about some of the monsters and their take on it, and I think they're absolutely brilliant in what they're doing, and I'd say more power to some of the liberties they've taken, and honestly, it's honoring the tradition and the folklore in a really cool and fresh way.
Yeah, and it's like I told them, they took a little bit of creative license as storytellers to create some of the creatures for their game. This is a game that they're developing, and let me tell you something, it's not just a little chintzy game. It is high-level stuff.
No, I can't say that I'm a pro gamer, but as somebody who definitely gets in there and enjoys a good game on the console or on the PC, you all know that I play tabletop games as well. This is something that I watched the trailer for, and I immediately was impressed and excited, and if I had no personal interest or tie to this project as a gamer, I would be all over this. And I really can't wait for it to actually come out so that I can just play the thing myself.
And they're doing really well in their initial launch. But let me give you the info and a little bit about it, and then we're going to jump into this interview with these guys. They contacted us and asked us if they could chat with us on the show, and obviously we wanted to be a part of it. This game is called Hellhunter, and you can go to hellhuntergame.com or go to Kickstarter and look up Hellhunter by Ballistic Interactive and check this out. People, this is phenomenal stuff. I'm not a major gamer like you are or some other people that we hang out with, but I love gaming. But even more, I love quality work, quality art, quality development, and this stuff is there. So
it really is.
Check out Kickstarter, Hellhunter by Ballistic Interactive. Some of the interview, like I said, we had to cut out because of some weird phantom stuff going on, and it's one of the reasons why I think we want to upgrade a lot of stuff, get into a new space. I'm not really sure what happened, but you'll get a lot of great information from these guys anyway, and they're just fun. Very cool guys to hang out with. But like I said, hellhuntergame.com or Kickstarter. And this, I'm trying to look for... Okay, here it is. So what is Hellhunter? Hellhunter is a supernatural investigative hunting RPG where you assume the role of a freelance hunter building your career towards uncovering the ultimate terror. However, the identity and characteristics of your target aren't revealed. You must investigate while being hunted by them yourself. Based on your deduction, you determine which tools to use, like UV bullets against shadows, so on and so forth, in an epic showdown at the end of each level. Death lurks in every corner. Do you have what it takes to become a Hellhunter? You just take it from there and look at the screenshots, look at the video, some of the artwork, and the tools that they're using in this game. And then their pledges are just stunning with what they're giving away to be a part of this. So let's jump into this. We're going to talk to SkyKing and Chai from Ballistic, hear what they have to say about their game and development right now on Kickstarter. So let's switch channels and go to that interview right now. It's good to be back. Thanks, everybody. We love you. So let's jump into this. We've got Chai and SkyKing here with us from Ballistic Interactive. Michael, we've just met these guys a couple of weeks ago by email through the Monster Guys podcast. Guys, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and where you're coming from?
Well, pleasure to be here. We're, like you said, we're Ballistic, and my name is Kai. And my partner is Pete. We're from Australia. I'm from Brisbane, and he's from Melbourne, and I'm the artist in the company.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Chai says, it's a SkyKing here, aka Pete, and from Melbourne. I'm the programmer. Like to say the brains of the operation. No, I'm just kidding. Like Chai said, we're just two guys trying to make an awesome game for people to enjoy.
Well, listen, it's a privilege to have you guys with us. When I got the email a couple of weeks ago, I was just floored. You sent me an email basically chiming in, and we've been on break for a while with the Monster Guys podcast for a lot of reasons that we'll explain to our listeners in another part of this podcast. But you guys rang us up and said, hey, we're making a game, and a lot of it is inspired by some of your podcast episodes. and I was just floored. I was, inspired myself and honored, and I showed it to Michael, and he was beside himself. So it's kind of cool. We're talking to you guys now about Hellhunter the game that you are in development of. It's on Kickstarter. We're going to get into some of that a little bit later. But tell us what inspired you. Where's the connection with the Monster Guys podcast and the game that you're developing? Where does that inspiration come from?
All right, so pretty much we started this working on this game 13 months ago. And still in the conceptual phase, we didn't even know this game would be like that. Today we had different ideas. We had about half a dozen different game ideas. And we're cryptozoology, like myself, cryptozoology nut, SkyKing is crazy about that. And when we just brainstormed different game ideas, and then we came to this one game idea, and then we realized how crazy we are about cryptozoology and monsters and stuff like that. And when we started working on the game, it wasn't exactly like what you see now. And we just tried to get any information we can about cryptozoology. And as you guys know, it's a very niche genre. And I would say pretty much the Monster Guys were the best resource for that. We suddenly realized there's a lot more depth, there's a lot more folklore. And it gave us a lot more ideas about the actual gameplay of Hellhunter. That you kind of need to identify what enemy it is and all these sort of things. And we got a lot of information, and we thought to ourselves, wow, this is a great thing, and there's actual audience for this, and let's make this game.
Yeah, so let me just recap here briefly from your website. Hellhunter the game is a supernatural investigative hunting RPG where you assume the role of a freelance hunter building your career towards uncovering the ultimate terror. However, with each job, the level is procedurally generated, and the true identity of the supernatural creature is not revealed. It's up to you to explore and investigate it, to determine the tools needed to vanquish the hostile entity, which creates an intense and unique experience for every hunt. Death lurks in every corner. Do you have what it takes to become a hell hunter? That's some intense stuff. You guys have got a dark RPG going. We're proud to be a part of it. We're going to support you however we can. But we want to talk to you about this game, about you guys, and get the word out. So beyond that recap, which is right up at the top of your website, which is tell us your website name again?
It's hellhuntergame.com.
hellhuntergame.com. You can also find them on Kickstarter, Hellhunter by Ballistic Interactive. Everybody listening needs to go check this out, because just from what we're seeing on the screenshots and some of the trailers, this is phenomenal. I am so incredibly excited about seeing what you guys are doing with this right now.
Yeah, you guys contacted us right before we went on vacation, and then when we got back from vacation, I think you had already started the Kickstarter at that campaign at that point. I sat down to watch the trailer, and I've been geeking out over the last few days. Everything from, obviously, the monsters, which excites us, to just the subtle intricacies of the mechanics of the game itself, watching how, your character on screen will use a UV light to study the footprints or any traces of things on the ground, the different tools he uses in investigating. And on top of that, you guys, it looks like you have some pretty exciting combat on there. As a monster enthusiast and as a casual gamer, I'm just excited on all levels.
It means so much. It means so much to hear that.
Yeah, that's some really kind words, and it's very much appreciated. DC, if you ever want a voice acting gig, I love that readout. That was epic. That was intense.
I'm here for you, man. I'm all about that. So that's just kind of a recap, just a brief insight into what the game is about. Take us a little bit on a journey with the creative process leading to where you are now in the development of the game, and talk to us about what you want us to know about this game right now.
We can start from the beginning, pretty much.
Yeah. Start it off. You go for it.
Yeah, so obviously we've been working on it for 13 months, and with this kind of game, you kind of have to proof it. You have to make sure it's actually fun or whatever. And I would say it pretty much took us 6 months of prototyping. Is it SkyKing?
Yeah, it was.
So I would say we spent a few months just sitting together and mind mapping, and because we wanted to introduce something fresh into gaming, pretty much. You play a lot of clones, a lot of games that are pretty much the same, and for us, making games is a lot about making something different. So we spent a lot of time, even before the prototyping, just sitting together and mind mapping and trying to come up with something fun and fresh. And after that, we started prototyping.
Yeah, pretty much. Once we realized, okay, we're going to be making a game about crazy monsters that you're going to identify. You're going to find their strengths. You're going to find their weaknesses. You're going to hunt them. It pretty much. It took us to that point where we started researching, what are all the, darkest, meanest, creepiest monsters out there. And I mean, listening to you guys has been a huge inspiration. And besides that, we've found so many, awesome ones, to name a few, like there's the Leviathan, there's, Changeling, the Wendigo, which, was an awesome episode that you guys covered on the Wendigo.
We could actually, I think we can get into that in a bit depth, maybe in a bit, because that's a pretty deep part of it. But I think before we jump into that, we want to say we spent about, after the conceptual phase, we spent about 3 months at prototyping and actually getting a good game out there. And then we started preparing for the Kickstarter campaign pretty much.
Yeah.
So let me go back, because again, I just want to reiterate how beautiful this game looks. Just from the early screenshots and the trailer, it's an absolutely stunning visual to look at. So I can't even imagine how wonderful it is to play. But obviously, you guys have been doing this before this game. What have you worked on prior to Hellhunter? What's your background in gaming and development?
Well, we've pretty much been in the industry for a while now. Like we didn't jump straight to make our own game. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of time. We have a collective experience, I would say, around 14 years, pretty much, something around that. And we worked pretty much on all kinds of games, from mobile to pretty much AAA. I would say we're most known for, I worked as a lead artist on the Star Drive franchise. And Pete worked on many mobile games, more from that sector, pretty much. And I also worked on, anyone from Australia who's chiming in will know, I worked on the Queensland Heritage Project. And I would say that's pretty much what we're mostly known for. And we've been doing this for full time as a job in the game industry for the last 6 to 8 years.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I was going to say, because I was just going to say, it does not look like an attempt at all.
Thank you so much.
To use these words, beautiful and stunning, and just aside from the visuals themselves, it really looks top-notch professional. And something you guys said earlier was that you guys are trying to do something unique, something that's not a clone of another game. I was trying to describe this game to another friend, and I really couldn't. The only thing I could do was describe bits and pieces from other games to try to piece this together, because it looks like such a unique experience. So I would say, just from first impressions, you guys have definitely exceeded there.
Thanks a lot.
So much so, I've actually gone into the forums and gone on to Steam. People are voting for you right now, the Greenlight and Steam and everything. And those are some of the comments on Steam as well, is that this doesn't look like anything else that we've seen. It's got some horror, it's got some RPG elements, it almost looks like it maybe has some rogue elements.
On your website, you're doing the same thing with this game. You've got different monsters from all over the world that are coming into this gameplay. What are some of the classes of monsters or enemies or types? What are some of the monsters that you're bringing into this? Can you go through any of that with us?
We sure would. It's pretty interesting, because this will probably be the first time we really talk about the enemies, and what better place to do it than here. So first, about the enemies, at the moment we have planned 3 categories for enemies, and we have poltergeists, or everyone knows maybe ghosts, but a bit different, and then we have shapeshifters, still unconfirmed, and demons. And about Hellhunter, the enemies or the cryptids are a really big part of the game. As we said before, your main job in the game, you get into a level and you don't know what you're facing. And that's a big thing, because part of the game is actually investigating and finding out what you're hunting. And while you're doing that, whatever you're hunting is also hunting you at the same time. And then at the final stage of the level, there's a giant showdown, which is basically, you might say, both sides reveal their cards.
That is very fun. You said in your email as well, you said that shapeshifters may not, I'm not sure if you meant like they won't make it into the game, or you'll call them under like a different class of enemies.
Based on our budget so far for the Kickstarter, I would say the confirmed enemies for the game are the poltergeist and the demons, and if all goes well, we have stretch goals for the shapeshifters, we're saying right now, and we would love to cover, we actually have everything planned for the shapeshifters, would love to go into more detail, and like we said, the poltergeists are just a group of enemies. So the poltergeist has different enemies within them, and your job is to find which one it is.
Hellhunter seems to center around the story. In my opinion, a good game starts with a good story. A great game starts with a great story. And you guys have got some great storytelling going on. And you mentioned it early, it begins with the investigation. You're building this, and that's key for me to chime in or want to get engaged into this game. And I'll just read another piece from your Kickstarter. In Hellhunter, every good case starts with a careful investigation. Scoping out your surroundings for out-of-the-ordinary clues will help you decipher the identity of the creatures you are hunting. Such clues include abnormal footprints, bloodstains, traces of ectoplasm, and countless others. Your deductive skills will mean the difference between life and death against your enemy. I'm hooked. I'm there. This is the type of stuff that we need to have, and I think people enjoy, not only when they're playing games, but when you're just living out life. This is storytelling at its finest, and you guys are doing a bang-up job with it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and just a word on the Cryptonomicon, I love it so much. Even to the point of the name is fantastic for anybody that's a fan of Lovecraft or Army of Darkness or anything like that, of course. Knowing that you guys are going to have those extra features that so many great games have, where the reader or the player can get in there and learn about the nitty-gritty details that you guys are building in your world, it warms our hearts here.
Well, I mean, the cool thing is you actually have to read about each enemy quite carefully, because we'd like to think we're making a kind of hardcore game. Well, not hardcore, but it's for serious players. It's not going to hold your hand. It's not going to find the enemies for you. You have to actually get in there and decipher based on what you read about the different enemies, and that's a really cool, I guess, feature or mechanic of our game. You really have to think about it and decipher the clues, which it's actually really fun. We tested it, and it's super fun.
And I would like to add, we never tell you if you're right or wrong. And the most fun part is actually we were like prototyping and giving it to people. And I think the part we enjoy best is when someone tried to investigate it, but he didn't do it properly. He didn't take his time. He didn't check the clues properly. And we never tell it until you face the enemy, and then they find out it's the wrong enemy. We just watch them get destroyed.
So I'm actually really glad to hear that. That's something that I don't think I realized up until that point. I think there's a movement back to the NES era of difficulty. So many games nowadays do just that. They hold your hand through it. They make it easy, so it's almost more of a movie with buttons. So you can just walk through it, eating popcorn and with a bunch of eye candy. But a lot of gamers these days are craving that return to something that's actually going to give them a challenge and engage them. So that is lovely to hear.
100%. And that's actually one of the big reasons we wanted to make this game. Because there's something interesting about game design for anyone chiming in, interested in that aspect. To make a game fun, there's different elements, but for us a big element is challenge versus reward. And if your reward is not big enough, it's not fun. But also if the challenge is not fun enough, is not high enough, it harms the enjoyment from the game. So you need to have two. And a lot of games today, just like you said, they have a lot of reward, but there's very little challenge. And you notice in big games, the players just stop playing after like 10 hours. So we're hoping to, like you said, we're retro game lovers. We want to get back to the basics here.
I mean, those things have got to be, they're the core of good storytelling, and I think they're the core of good gameplay. I'm sitting here while we're talking and listening to you guys. I'm just looking at some of the screenshots on your Kickstarter, and I love this one where the guy is investigating clues using the black light and the night vision goggles. This is just quality stuff right here. And I don't know, Michael, if you agree with me, but I could look at this all day long, because this is just, and all the things that you have, your tools, like your torch, your powered goggles, all the way down to your baits and wards. I mean, there's some depth here, and this is very cool. Is there anything about any of those elements that you want to tell us about?
Yeah, absolutely. Big part of the game is the investigation element. Like, obviously, if anyone watches, it's not Diablo with ghosts, even though we love Diablo and we love shooting, and as you can see later on. But the part of investigation, we actually read a lot about actual paranormal investigation and ghosts. And there's many tools that people use nowadays. For example, a big part of the investigation, you use an EMF scanner, which is electromagnetic frequencies. Mm-hmm. And you need to find objects of interest through this. You have to listen to different audio frequency changes, and then areas that are worth investigating for clues. We also have the blacklight, as you've seen. Usually there's a visual clue, for example, bloodstained carpet, and then you know something is wrong there, and you check your blacklight. Maybe there's blood leading somewhere. Maybe there was some sort of fight, some sort of struggle, and it's worth searching that. Another big part of the investigation element is you have something that's called detectors. Because you're dealing with a supernatural entity, which is much, much, much powerful than yourself, and you cannot see them, you have to have some sort of tools to detect them. So basically, you place multiple detectors. For example, there's cameras, and they're linked to a thermostat, basically, which measures sudden changes in the temperature. For example, Italy becomes cold, and when it senses that, it shoots. The camera shoots. And then at that moment also we've made it so that it reveals the supernatural enemy. It also links to your radar, so you can kind of know where the enemy is. And we also use it to gather information about the enemy. So while you place them around the house, you actually want the poltergeist to get detected. And after it gets detected enough times, you actually get more clues.
That's a lot of good mechanics there. And even if I can go back to some of the GIFs or the GIFs, however you want to pronounce it, on your Kickstarter, just the subtlety of the animation of the guy checking the carpet for those bloodstains that you're talking about. There's a subtle craftsmanship to it. Just the way he waves it back and forth as the player is walking around. It's not simple. It's not just the guy holding it out there. And to me, as a gamer, that's really exciting. The detectors are really cool. Like, you've got on here on your Kickstarter talking about how, like, you use salt as one of those detectors, and that harkens to the folklore side, and is really exciting to see, of course.
Yeah. So going back to the cryptids, which we haven't really explored yet. When you think about it, there is different enemy classes. So there was a poltergeist, but for example, demons, you can't really use the cameras and the sudden changes in temperature. What you would do, you would use strobe lines, and you would put them strategically around the level. And once the demon passes through, you can trace his footsteps, so you have a better idea where he is, so you can avoid him.
That is very cool. Did I see correctly in the trailer that your vision kind of goes blurry when you get too close to something, or when something freaks the camera out?
Actually, that's pretty fun. If you go to the campaign updates, in the latest update, we got a lot of feedback about that, and people don't like it, and honestly, we didn't like it that much. If you go to the latest campaign update, we actually put a new GIF of the improved furniture throw, which is the poltergeist telekinesis, and people loving it so far, so we're really happy about that. You can have a look.
Okay, I see that.
Yeah, we're looking at that now.
I did, at first it did seem a bit blurry, but a friend of mine did look at it and say, oh, the insanity aspect, when characters...
Yeah, pretty much.
I did enjoy it, but I do understand the choice.
Yeah, we probably will have to walk away from it, but we still have the mechanics in place.
I got it.
So we can play with it, we can see where it goes, but we're heading towards a more realistic take, and as every game, this is still a Kickstarter phase. And this is not a finished game, and we have to learn, we have to get feedback from the community. We're actually talking to people who are actually very enthusiastic about paranormal investigation. So we want a more realistic take, we want a more dark approach to it. more grounded approach. Regarding the enemies, I would also love to go through all of them if you guys would like to.
Oh, we'd love that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so like I said before, we have Poltergeist, we have Wraith, we have the Kelpie, we have the Shadow, we have the Nightmare. For the Shapeshifters, we have the Lycanthrope, you gotta have them. Nosferatu, that's our version of vampires. Changeling, and Wendigo, you gotta have the Wendigo. And then we have the demons finally, which are gargoyles, and that's plural. That's because you're not facing one, you're facing several. We have the Lama, we have the Tsamna, and we have the Leviathan. Alright, so for the Poltergeist, briefly, the Wraith, as you've seen from the trailer, he's more aggressive. And he's blind in the game, so it's very easy to kind of fool him. He feeds off light, and as you've seen, he feeds off the souls as well. He's what we call a parasitic enemy in Hellhunter. We have different categories of enemies. Because he feeds off the soul, he can also release them, and they attack the player. And he's more, maybe we shouldn't tell it, but he's more vulnerable to certain type of attacks. So for example, in Hellhunter, big part of the game, you investigate the enemy, but you have to find their weaknesses based on your Cryptonomicon. So for example, the Wraith, you can't use normal bullets against him, you have to use silver bullets. And you can't use a bear trap against him, because it's a spirit. You have to use special electromagnetic pulse, EMP, to kind of control the spirits he releases. Then we have the Kelpie, which we mentioned briefly before. He's part liquid, he's part spectral. So for the Kelpie, our plan are to make him more interact with the environment. So each enemy interacts with the environment differently. He interacts with liquid, so you have to watch out from anything that's related to liquid. You can use it to attack you. He's also an aggressive enemy, so he will break anything on its path, and you should always use that against him, aggressiveness. Now moving on, there's the Nightmare. He's more related to the insanity effect he mentioned earlier. He plays with the character mind, and he's part of the group of enemies we call Sneaky. He's not as strong as the Kelpie and the Wraith. However, he's very cunning. He will try to use other attack against you. For example, we have something planned that if he tries to play with your mind. So for example, if you try to run away from him, you open a door and you find a brick wall there and you can't pass through. So he keeps playing with your head. And then there's the Shadow that you saw from the trailer, which a lot of people seems to love. And
the giant spider?
Yes, it's a spider.
Yeah.
It's not exactly a spider, it's actually some sort of thing, you could say. And as everyone could guess, he uses light and shadows against you. He's extremely dangerous, but he's not as tough as the Kelpie and the Wraith, meaning he's more offensive. He's not very defensive. He will try to flank you, but if you manage to use some machine gun mostly, because he moves a lot, you have more chance against him. And against the Shadow, for example, you should use ultraviolet bullets.
And to touch on this, we also have a whole, an array of traps or gadgets, so to speak, that are effective against certain enemies. So, for example, against more corporal beings like shapeshifters, like werewolves and Nosferatus and stuff, you'd kind of set up like tripwires hooked up to, I guess, different gadgets. So you can set up a tripwire and then you would hook it up to maybe an explosive, and because that's a physical being that will actually activate the tripwire and then the explosive will go off, that works very well against them. But if you set that up against, say, a poltergeist, they're just going to go through the tripwire and it's not going to do anything. So there's a whole range of different traps and gadgets which are really, really cool that you have to use against specific enemies.
So, SkyKing, do you want to talk a bit about the shapeshifters then?
The shapeshifters. We have 4 shapeshifters, like Chai mentioned. We have the werewolf, the changeling, the Wendigo, which you guys are experts on, and we'd love to hear some more about it, and the Nosferatu. So pretty much the werewolf is super aggressive. Like, it's pretty much he's gonna get there, he's gonna rampage, he's gonna destroy the level. And another really cool mechanic in the game is that each level is, completely destructible and dynamic, and while you play, your vantage points actually change. So, for example, you might be hiding behind, I don't know, a table or hiding behind a corner, and the werewolf could completely just annihilate everything, and your advantage is gone. You have no place to hide anymore, so you got to find a new one. So that's kind of a lot what we play on with a werewolf. He's just super aggressive, destroys everything. The Nosferatu is similar. So in our game, I'm sure you've noticed the enemies you face are huge. They're massive compared to the player. So yeah, the Nosferatu and the werewolf are super aggressive, massive creatures. But yeah, the Nosferatu has a few different tricks up its sleeve. Yeah, Chai, I reckon you should elaborate. I think you know this one better than me.
Fair enough. Yeah. So the Nosferatu, like a lot of folklore, they have vampires are pretty much human by of blood. For Hellhunter, we went more towards I don't know if the listeners watch Blood, the anime, the original video animation. There was the Nosferatu there, and they were more basically gigantic creatures with claws, and we want to get towards that direction.
Those were, very brutal creatures, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah. Did you watch that?
I've seen a few episodes, yes.
Yeah, pretty much. So in the original video animation, we go towards that direction. So you're facing against something more primitive, more aggressive, but for the Nosferatu, he's a bit smarter than the werewolf. We were planning to have a bit more special attacks. We want to shapeshift to smoke, so he can move better. And he's pretty much similar to the werewolf, I would say. Unlike the werewolf is a carnivore. He eats meat, and that's important for investigation. And Nosferatu is a parasitic enemy. As we all know, he drinks blood. So, for example, something that might help your investigation. If you see dead bodies without blood in them, it's probably a Nosferatu. So, yeah. And then we have two other enemies again. We have more sneaky enemies, and that's the Changeling and the Wendigo. The Changeling, what's a shapeshifter without changelings? The Changeling change and camouflage into the environment. He's not as strong as the werewolf and the Nosferatu. So if you find a way to expose him, you have an advantage. So again, we're going back to the trap. So against a werewolf, you would probably use a bear trap. Against the Changeling, you want something that exposes him. Maybe a tripwire or something, pressure plates. And he camouflages into an environment, and he's always trying to flank you and attack you, ambushes and such. And then we have the Wendigo, which again, you guys are gonna hate us for that. But we changed it a bit. We did make him a cannibal, at least. But he's more about, we think, yes, he's a tormented human originally. We do respect that, and we do like it. And it was actually, back to the monster guys, the Wendigo episode was probably our biggest influence. And it's also SkyKing, we probably shouldn't say, but it links to the story of the character. But we're not going to elaborate here until we get the proper writer and everything and the Kickstarter finishes. But the Wendigo is, again, he's a sneaky character. And this time around, he's more of he's a slender enemy that squeezes through gaps and try to camouflage himself in the environment, but not like the Changeling. He doesn't actually change into the environment, but he will try to get through pipes, he will try to get through anything you can squeeze it through, pretty much. So you have to use your ears when you fight against him. You have to, because you can't see him until it's too late.
No, I love that. That is actually a really cool iteration of that creature.
Thank you so much. Like we feared you wouldn't say that, so we're so glad you said that.
No, absolutely. I think we did talk about a few of them in that podcast, and that was one of our favorite podcasts, and we did get a lot of feedback on that as well. But the Wendigo has so many different forms just in the folklore itself, as a humanoid figure, just standard size, to this gigantic creature to something that actually flies around through the air. So to hear something that sounds like you guys are saying that it's still physical, but it squeezes through pipes and stuff. That's unique and something that I definitely want to see in action.
Awesome. We're so glad to hear that. And I guess we should finish with the demons. We've decided the demons will make it to the game. We were not sure between the demons and the shapeshifters, but we thought if we had to choose, we'd have to go with the demons because they're more similar to the poltergeist in a way. And that links maybe, I guess, better to the ghost hunting. Okay, so about the demons, they would be a whole different class of enemy. For those enemies that you won't encounter a demon in a small house or apartment. You won't encounter them in giant cathedrals, in maybe asylums, because you need a lot of space because they're huge. They're more, how do you say, sorry if I pronounce it wrong, but eldritch monsters. So we have 4 enemies for them. We have the gargoyles, as I said before, they're plural. And then this is a shout out for Doctor Who.
Yeah.
You can already guess why. Because they do not move when you look at them.
No, definitely the weeping angels.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, you just have to have something like that in the game. And they're more sneaky, obviously, because they're not gonna charge head on you. However, they work as a group. And it's obviously at this moment of the prototype, we mostly work on the poltergeist, and we can't wait to get those guys in the game. And we want much more complex AI. That's for SkyKing to work on. And then so they're susceptible to light, which means there's a reason when you look at them they don't move. That's because of your torch. So when you shine a torch at them, the specific torch the character wields, which is not a normal torch, it's a very powerful torch. And if you upgrade the torch, it will actually be more useful against those enemies. And when you don't, they will flank you, they will go from behind because they're not strong. And the thing too, if you wanna fight them, you have to take them one by one. You have to eliminate them one by one because their power is the teamwork. All right, and also we want to mention they're vulnerable to traps which hold them together, like oil, glue, what you can use, fire, things like that. And now moving on, there's Lamia, which is a demon. And again, we're saying the demons specialize in possession. So the enemy you saw at the start, he doesn't use telekinesis, he uses possession. He possesses environment to fight against you. Just like the poltergeist used the environment to hit you. However,
that makes sense. That reminds me a little bit of the game Alan Wake, which was a big hit.
Oh yeah, good one. Back to the possession, there's Lamia, which is specialized in possession. And as such, they will use the environment a lot against you. They will also possess you if they get too close. And they also bring bad luck, which is pretty much a bit similar to the nightmare, but instead of playing on your mind, this is actual things. So if you try, we said it before, there was a door and there's a brick, or you don't know which door leads where, but that's just in your mind. The Lamia actually changes the environment so the door will fall on you, or the environment will start shaking or going against you. And now, moving on to the last 2 enemies, there's the Sanma. And unfortunately, I think you guys would know more about that than us. We saw like a cool concept art, and we're like, wow, we wanted Sanma in the game. That looks pretty cool. I don't know if you guys can add more about that, but I'll just start that in Hellhunter, they burrow into the ground. And then they pretty much rely on that to attack you with surprise attacks, and they have there's a very limited attack window when it does go out, so you will have to use that against them. And if you have anything to add to it, by all means.
I was actually just about to say, to be honest, that is actually something that I've never come across before. So to see that in the list of enemies,
yeah.
I was very curious, and it's something that we may have to do an episode on, just because I've never even seen it before.
Sorry. So yeah, that's some, just like you said, this is really hard to get information about this creature, and again, this is more further on in the development, so we're gonna waiting this one out, but we can't wait to sink our teeth into that. And sorry, I just forgot the last enemy. That's the Leviathan, and that's probably the biggest enemy in the game. And we're not sure if it will be some sort of boss or one of the demons. But his special power, he eats the entire level slowly. And
oh gee,
yeah,
that's
That's appropriate.
Exactly, 100%. I don't know if some of the listeners know more of I guess the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible mentioned the Leviathan. Again, I'm no expert. I just read a bit about it, but they're pretty much demons that devour everything, and maybe, I guess, also supernatural fans would know Leviathan. But in our case, it's more of a beast. It's more primitive.
Yes.
It's not intelligent, and they just eat everything. And that's really important because as a Hellhunter, as the player, you're a human. The environment is something that really helps you. You hide behind it. You use it as vantage points to control the movement. You use it for traps. And having something that starts to eat the entire level is probably the worst thing for a hunter.
Yeah.
I can definitely think of how, as a gamer, it's almost like any level that has a running clock that you have to beat is terrifying enough. I can imagine a running clock that slowly gets rid of the space you play in. That is actually terrifying to think about.
Yeah, we're looking forward to to bringing that one.
Hate to see people dying. Sorry, did you catch that one?
Yeah, that's good stuff. The Leviathan traditionally is a beast. It's a physical beast that it is a devourer of everything that it comes in contact with. So, and I personally believe that we have not come in contact with everything that is beneath the waters, or perhaps even in the skies, or hidden away in mountains. And I believe the world is yet to see some of these type of creatures. So it's always interesting to speculate and bring in characteristics and information from various cultures, and like you said, from biblical texts and other texts from around the world about these creatures that, purportedly people have seen and encountered and have known of these things in times past. So it'd be very cool to see these in your gameplay as well.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, we can't wait. And just like you said, that makes two of us, three of us actually, and probably four of us.
Four of us,
because we believe as well. We haven't seen anything. We don't know much. Most of the waters in the world are pretty much uncharted, underwater, deep underwater, because obviously divers can't reach it. And we think there's a lot of mysteries to discover, and that's something we love to explore our imagination through this game.
Yeah, definitely. And some of your art speaks to that. You don't have a lot of some of your still art and your concept designs and everything on your Kickstarter and your website. I mean, they're beautiful. One of the things I'd like to do somehow, and maybe we have to do this offline, I've got to figure out a way to purchase some signed art from you guys, because this is beautiful stuff, and it really speaks to the depth and the imagination of where you're trying to go with these creatures. And one thing I will say about the monsters that you're describing, and you said earlier, I'm not sure if you guys would be happy with this. I think what you're doing, number one, is important because you're bringing some great folklore and great mythology to life, but you're not venturing so far away from the base of these individual creatures, these monsters, that you're disrespecting any culture, you're disrespecting any piece of folklore, but yet you're still bringing a fresh perspective. You're adding to that story. So, I would definitely say just keep going the way you're going, because you're starting with a base and you're expanding that story to something unique for your gameplay. And I just think it's a great thing that you're doing. It's phenomenal storytelling.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you so much.
It really means a lot to us to hear that from the Monster guys.
Yeah. It is something that, as storytellers, years ago, we had to realize is that you have permission to tell stories from your own perspective. And if you create new things based on that folklore, that mythology, it's okay. The permission is there. Historically, that's what we do as a people, as a human race. We tell stories and we expand those stories, and that's what makes our world exciting. Here's a question I have for you. In developing all this and working with all these monsters and this folklore and mythology, what is your favorite monster that you've come to work with so far? Do you have one that stands out, either one of you, that this is my favorite monster to be dealing with in all of this?
Oh, that's tricky. Like, did we have to choose? We like them all. Like, one of the things, one of the things about when you do game design is we believe a game has to be balanced. And this is a very hard thing because it tends to be that one enemy will, if you have like a line and you have to have all the enemy balance, one of them will always stand up, or you have different weapons and it will go out of balance. So for us, it's very important to have them balanced, which also means we have to like them all equally. However, if I had to choose one, it would be the Kelpie. It's just crazy. What about you, SkyKing?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's like you said, we've put a bunch of cool stuff in all of them, but we've also, given them weaknesses to make it balanced, which makes it hard to really pick like a favorite. Yeah, I think I'd have to go with the Leviathan just because it's insane. It just it devours the whole level. It's going to be crazy.
How can you say no to that?
Yeah. How can you beat Leviathan? That's a hard one. Michael, I think one of your favorite creatures is the Kelpie as well. And we've actually written about the Kelpie. We've written Kelpie into, I think, the second book of our Charlie Sullivan and the Monster Hunter series, where our monster hunters have to face off with a lake full of Kelpie, and those are some devastating beasts.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy, I would love to read that.
They are deceptively devastating. I was thinking about the origin of poltergeist itself. Just generally refers to a ghost that disturbs something, or disturbs a pattern, or disturbs an object. And thinking about it, a Kelpie is a spirit. It's a shape-shifting spirit that stands by the water. By tradition, when you go to pet it or try to ride it or anything, you almost stick to it like glue, and it's known for dragging you down and eating you, basically. Crushing you to death and then eating you. So, by that extension, yes, it is something that very much disturbs the normal pattern of things. I love that. I am really excited to pick up this game and see just how devastating you guys have made the Kelpie. So that I'm definitely looking forward to that one. And as far as Peter, your favorite, the Leviathan sounds terrifying as a gamer, and I'm probably going to be really stressed.
Yeah, I hope so. That's what we're trying to do.
Very much.
One question I do have, and it sounds like from the interview tonight, it sounds like the character is central to the story, which both of us certainly are going to be excited about, but I'm assuming the answer is no. But something that I immediately thought when I finished watching the trailer, and something that I've seen a lot of people ask on Steam and online, is, will there be a multiplayer aspect? And I asked that, I do see like lamps falling in the trailer, or I see certain places where there's a almost cinematic moment of, oh crap, that's happening right next to me. I'm assuming you're wanting all of those to happen for one player, but is there any development or any thoughts towards
I can say we would love to see multiplayer co-op. It would be amazing. However, as game dev indie devs with limited budget and time, our priority is really to get the game down for the backers, for anyone who support us, get the best game we can. And as for multiplayer, I guess maybe Hellhunter 2 then.
Yeah, it's definitely something we've talked about and thought about, and we even can tackle it in the future. But right now, I think we just need to focus on getting a really amazing, individual experience, and then we can always expand from there.
Yeah, so let me just ask a trivial question here, and I don't know if there's an answer to it, but your character that is obviously featured on your trailer and on your images on your website, is there an inspiration for that guy? Is there somebody you base that guy, his image or his equipment or his look off of? I mean,
that's SkyKing. What are you talking about? No, we thought about. Just had to say that, but we actually thought about, as we said again, it's more grounded, and we think someone who can deal with supernatural enemies. He's not going to be a weak guy. He's going to be pretty big bloke, pretty tough. We're thinking ex-military, ex-police, and you can see tattoos and everything. Something we do want to have in the game, and we will have to a certain extent, is character customization. Obviously we will pick the background. We want you to play someone you identify with instead of playing a pre-made character that's made for you, so you can make pretty much your own adventure. And of course we have the plot, we have everything. It will be something written, but we do want that character customization. He will be a badass, we have to, and we'll see. If the Kickstarter goes well, we do want a female character as well, but that's probably something for a stretch goal.
Yeah, very cool. So anything that you want to say that maybe we haven't covered, or anything that you're looking at in the immediate future about Hellhunter, or anything else that you're working on? Anything else that you want to add to this conversation right now?
I think we pretty much gave a good overview. We want the player to discover everything else on their own, so it's still interesting. And if there's one thing we have to say, we have to give a giant shout out for the fans. So far, we're just floored. We're just amazed with the support we're getting so far. It's not easy to do like marketing stuff like that, but with everyone's help, it's been pretty much amazing. Thank you so much, guys.
You've definitely got some support in a lot of ways, and certainly a shout-out is in order to those backers and those fans so far. Again, we mentioned it at the beginning, go to Kickstarter, look up Hellhunter by Ballistic Interactive, or you can go to hellhuntergame.com and find all the links there. You can find these guys on Facebook and Twitter as well. I'm sure you guys are very interested in interacting with fans and people who are interested in the game. And of course, people will have all of your info on our website and through the podcast as well. But just a stunning piece of work so far. I'm so much looking forward to the final product. I would just encourage anybody who's listening to click over there to the Kickstarter and support however you can. I mean, you've got some pretty amazing levels and rewards for people who are backing you. We were looking through some of them again yesterday, and I was just stunned at how much you're giving to people who are backing you. So that's pretty exciting.
Thanks a lot, and it's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much, guys.
Being on this podcast, it's actually kind of surreal. Like, I mean, I haven't done a podcast before, but starting off with the Monster Guys, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, like when we started, we never dreamed we would actually end up here. It's just unreal.
Oh wow! Well, thank you guys so much, and hopefully one day we won't just be talking over the computer. We can hang out with you guys and
we love that
together. Thanks so much for being with us. Again, anybody who's listening, head over to their website. We'll have all the information and the links posted on our website and on the podcast. This is definitely something you want to get behind. And Michael, we've been away for a few months, so this is pretty cool that we get to jump back into this season of podcasting with SkyKing and with Chai over this game. I'm just pumped about it.
To me, it really has been an honor. This has been fantastic to see that even a little bit we helped inspire. I can hardly believe it, and to use your wording, Guy, it is kind of surreal for us, I think.
Well, it's win-win all around.
Okay, great stuff right there, Michael. Everybody go check that out, hellhuntergame.com, or go to Kickstarter and look for Hellhunter by Ballistic Interactive. You guys get behind this. This is the real deal. And it has partially been inspired by the Monster Guys podcast. We are totally privileged to be a part of that.
Let's get this funded. I mean, selfishly, I just want to play the game. One of the things about that interview that really stuck out to me throughout, and even before when we were talking to them through email back and forth, they're really excited about this game. Even in the interview talking to them, you can tell that they are masters of the craft and they care about what they're doing, and they are gung-ho to get this off the ground. I think that they're surprised even by how much love they've received from the gaming community.
Yeah, well, and not just that from the professional side, but these are really nice guys.
They are.
They are really great guys to talk to. They're just the type of guys that I'd love to hang out with for an evening. And, oh, by the way, they're doing this amazing game.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, definitely.
Very, very cool there. We mentioned that we've been writing books at the front end of this. So to close this out, just to let everybody know, we have our Charlie Sullivan and the Monster Hunters series for young adult. Books 1 through 3 are out. We've just written book 4. It's being finalized and it's about to be released. Book 4 is called The Dragon Gate, and it's, my opinion, probably the most dangerous books of the series so far.
I think dangerous is one word for it. Troubling and...
Yeah, it's definitely a pivotal book in the series. So if you guys haven't jumped in, check that out. We'd love for you to help us out by purchasing our books. We also have an adult horror short story collection called Chaos Obsidiary. We'll leave the links in the show notes and everything, but you can get that on Amazon or through us directly. 7 short horror stories, and these are brutal. These are not for the faint of heart. You can read some of the reviews on that. We also have our Yokai Tales. That was born right out of our podcast. We did a series of original yokai stories about Japanese mythology, and we provided illustrations to those stories as well. So that book is out as well. Volume 2 is in the works. We also have an Irish fairy tales book about to drop. And then, of course, we've interviewed Suzanne Lambden, one of the authors we worked with on this podcast a couple times before. Her series, the Dead Heart series, is about to drop the the fifth book in that series.
The fifth and final in this particular series.
Yes, the fifth and the final. Now, she's got a couple of spin-off series to that, but the final book, Immortal Hearts, will be out pretty quickly on that side. So, man, it's just, we've been super busy with all of that, and 2017 is about to explode for us. So we're pretty excited and just love that you guys are hanging out with us on this journey along the way. So stay in touch with us. You can find us at themonsterguys.com, Facebook, The Monster Guys, Instagram, The Monster Guys, Twitter, The Monster Guys. We try to make it easy.
I was going to say, that does sound simple and easy to follow.
Yeah, so come hang out with us, talk to us. We love chatting it up with you. We've got a couple other surprises coming, possibly in the YouTube arena, and some more stuff here on the podcast. So stick with us. Thanks for being back with us and being gracious to us during the break. We love you. I'm DC, and I'm signing off.
And I'm Michael, and I'm following.
Okay, good night.
Good night.